Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tune. Today we're going to take the S2000 out for a little drive, since I don't think I've even made a video on driving this car around and doing like a pull. So I'm going to do that, but before that I wanted to talk about a couple issues that I've had with the S2000 since I've turbocharged it. There's been some issues initially when we first got the car together after we put the turbocharger on with the Haltech. There was issues where it would come into boost or whatever and make power and then have like a really hard rev limiter at like 7,000 RPM. And Kenny from Humble Performance and Brent from PFI actually gave me some tips on trying different trigger setup things, which I still don't have completely figured out, but I got it to the point where at least it can make power and make a pull. But it still has an issue on startup where it throws the cranking error. And I actually had a guy reach out to me with the same kind of issue on a K-Series car with a Haltech Elite. And I think it's just a matter, after doing some more talking with people about the trigger setup, is you kind of have to tune the trigger setup and do a custom trigger setup in the Haltech, which I don't know how to do, which maybe I'll learn, maybe I won't, I'm not sure. But I'm nervous to do it because I don't want to like screw the motor up if I get it wrong and the timing ends up going way off one way or another. And the only symptom that the car has currently is like once in a while it just won't fire and it'll throw that cranking error code, or I forget exactly what the error code is. I might throw it up on the screen here. But other than the Haltech cranking issue and the trigger setup issue in the ECU, the motors ran really good, but in the engine bay it has gotten hot. So you guys probably know that I did a wire tuck and I relocated the fuse box to the inside of the car and I relocated the battery to the trunk. I tucked off some stuff in the fender here because all that stuff was melting. The fuse box wiring was melting. I melted the wiring going to my oil pressure sensor down there. I'm super surprised like the VTEC wiring and stuff hasn't melted, but I heat wrapped that part of the manifold kind of right up to there. I might wrap the rest of it and get a turbo blanket, but I'm nervous to put a turbo blanket back on this car because it had one and the car actually started on fire on accident. Well, not on accident, it just happened. My drain line down here actually rattled loose. So the oil return line off of the turbo loosened up just enough to start dripping oil into the turbo blanket. And I was driving it one day and it was smoking from the turbo blanket, and then I popped the hood and the turbo blanket started on fire, which kind of crazy, but the turbo blanket itself probably didn't start on fire, but the oil in the blanket started on fire. So since then I have not been running a turbo blanket and just making sure that like my return line's not leaking and stuff like that. So everything's been good there. I swapped on the 4849, tried it out for a little while. It was fun. It was super responsive. It felt like a supercharger, but up top it definitely felt like choked up. Like the turbo was just a little bit too small for 9,000 RPM. It was good up till 7,500 or so. That's why I think it's a great turbo for a single cam. But on this engine that revs 9,000, I think the back pressure was just getting too high above 7,500 and it would drop boost. So I went with a new turbo from VS Racing. This is the 5755. And I just put this on with an 83 AR back housing. And this turbo is like perfect for like a 400 to 500 horsepower street car setup. You know, 10 to 15 pounds of boost on this motor. This turbo is perfect. It doesn't have any boost creep up top, but it also maintains boost up top. So the 6262 was great up top, but it would boost creep with this manifold and the single 44 millimeter wastegate. It would actually, like, the boost would run away above like 8,000 RPM. Where this turbo, like I said, it's like the happy medium, and I'm very pleased with this 5755 on this specific engine. And I would have probably just kept the 6262 if this was a dual wastegate manifold, but it's not. It's only a single. Another issue that I had was the fuel pressure regulator that I have. This is just like a cheaper PQY Amazon fuel pressure regulator. And one day I was on the dyno with the car just playing around with it, and the car was acting like the fuel pump was bad, or the fuel pump was going out, because it would drop fuel pressure when boost comes in, and it wouldn't maintain that 1-to-1 rise with the regulator. And what I found is I actually just pulled the 4 screws out of it, and the diaphragm actually just had like a piece of trash in the where like the little ball is inside the regulator, and I cleaned that out and it's been fine since. But that was just weird. It was just a little piece of debris that ended up getting in the regulator to cause it to run not 1-to-1 boost reference. Another issue that I did have with the car is the throttle body. I actually made a post on Facebook and everybody came out of the woodwork telling me that the products are just junk or whatever. But when in reality it's a 100mm throttle body or something, 90-something millimeter throttle body, really big throttle body. And sometimes when you run a 90mm throttle body, this is another one right here from Jack Spania, when you run this giant throttle body on a stock 2.0 or 1.8 or any of these like smaller 4-cylinder engines, sometimes these throttle bodies don't close all the way, and they don't close enough to get them to idle low enough. So the car would idle at like 1500 RPM, and I would have to pull ignition timing out of it in order to get it to settle down. The fix for this, it's kind of a thing that you probably have to do with a lot of, you know, these really large throttle bodies, unless you buy something really expensive like a Ross. I've heard those are really good and they don't have this type of issue. But what I did is I just took the throttle blade out of the throttle body. So there's like 2 little screws inside of there. I took those 2 little screws out and I sanded the housing. And then I took the blade, and I think this was actually the thing. A couple guys told me to sand the housing to get it to shut farther, but another guy that I talked to locally told me to just take the blade out and like reposition it. Sometimes when they bolt the throttle blades in, you can actually just loosen them a little bit and like reposition it, and you'll get it to shut farther. And what I did is I just sanded the housing a little bit, and then I took the blade and I flipped it around 180 degrees and repositioned it and kind of slowly tightened the bolts, worked, you know, tried to get it completely centered in there. And now the car idles perfectly, right at 1000 RPM where I want it, and no like sticking issues or anything like that. Because prior, before I loosened the bolts and sanded the housing on the throttle body, if I turned the adjustment screw all the way out, it would stick. So like on initial, right when you'd crack the throttle, it would be binding inside of there. So that's just a quick tip for you guys. If you have a throttle body that's kind of binding up, maybe loosen those screws to try to set the blade in there a different way. Because that worked for me, and now the car idles perfectly. Don't blame the, you know, obviously when parts are like mass produced and stuff like that, you know, some people might have issues or some people might not. 90mm, you know, on something like a 2.4 liter with a set of camshafts and stuff like that probably won't be that big of a deal, because they need a lot more airflow at idle in order to idle, if that makes sense. Another thing is the car would run 220 degrees or so on a hot summer day after quite a while, and I swapped out the stock cooling fan for a Mishimoto. This is a Mishimoto 12-inch race fan, and this cooling fan is a beast. I love this cooling fan. It's a power-hungry son of a gun, but it moves some air, and the car hasn't gotten to 220 anymore since me putting this fan on. So I'm gonna take the car off for a little drive and just put like my paramotor helmet on or something, because I have a helmet mount on that helmet. I'll probably look like a dweeb, you know, driving around with my paramotor helmet on, but whatever, at least I'll get some footage for you guys. I'm gonna throw that on and we'll go take this thing for a rip, do some pulls for you, and just kind of give you an overview of what I think of the driving experience with this car with a turbocharger once I finally have gotten it dialed in. In other news, I'm doing some hang testing on this paramotor that I bought. This is a Air Conception Nitro 200 that I've been playing around with to see if I like the harness design and swing arms on this paramotor. You guys, probably do realize that I've been lacking car stuff a lot lately, and it's just because, I don't know, for some reason, the last few years or whatever, a lot of my buddies kind of slowly got out of cars, and we all kind of have been growing up, and there just hasn't been as much car stuff going on, and it's been not really a main priority or main source of joy lately. But the paramotor stuff has been a ton of fun, and I really, it's really unfortunate that the paramotor stuff doesn't get as many views on my channel, but it's truly just an unreal sport to get into. It's so fun, super enjoyable. I love it. So this is a GoPro Hero 12 that I just bought. I don't know how the audio is going to be, but I really love this car, but it's just a little bit unfortunate with storing the car at the farm where my shop is. The driveway is all gravel, and if it rains it gets muddy, and like every time I wash the car now, there's just rocks piled up, like all up in the inner fender well and like behind the door and stuff, which is slightly annoying after you do a ton of body work and stuff. It's just a little bit frustrating to even want to drive the car. So that's another partial reason I haven't really done a whole lot with this thing, because I want to try to keep it nice. But we'll get the rocks out. You can probably hear them flinging up. I also deleted a resonator that was in the car. This NVIDIA exhaust has a resonator in the center and then two mufflers out the back. And I deleted the center resonator, and holy crap, this thing sounds so good now. Sure does rip. It probably doesn't even seem like all that crazy on camera, because it's not, you know, a typical Civic that's spinning all over the road. This is 400 horsepower actually hooked up. And that's part of the reason this car is fun, is because it's got usable power at 30 miles an hour, you know? I forgot if I even told you guys what tires I have. They're like a Kumo race tire, and man, I love them. They're like one of the best tires that I probably could have bought for this car. We'll do another little rip here. Second gear will start in. Just because I don't want to break the tranny banging into second gear. Yeah, it is really fun to have this car. Like, just the shifts and stuff are so good. And then you just grab that next gear and the power is right there. This turbo is sized awesome for this thing. car rocks pretty much all of my parts on it. The blow-up valve, the wastegate, the turbo, the injectors. You can get all that stuff through me right on huntertune.com. Man, this car just looks so good. I love it. Yeah, other than the rocks and stuff that get kicked up quite a bit driving out here at the farm, it's just such an awesome setup. It's like the perfect amount of horsepower. It's manageable. It's not like so crazy that the car is like out of control and stuff, at least with these tires on it. Yeah, they're the Kumo. What are they? Kuma X V730s. They're an awesome tire. I really dig them. But yeah, other than the trigger setup on the Haltech, I feel like I've got 99% of the bugs worked out of this thing. Just that startup thing, even just when I got back to the shop, I shut it off and parked it outside, came in the shop for a little bit, and then went back out and the car didn't start, but I rolled it down the hill and it fired up. When it's cold, it seems like it starts every time, but when it's hot, it definitely seems like it doesn't want to fire back up. I'll see if it does it quick, just to show you. Yeah, it's just gonna sit here and crank. But if I cycle it a couple times, flip the key on and off, sometimes it'll fire. Yeah, it's just angry. That cranking trigger thing, I gotta get that squared away. But yeah, like if I roll it down the hill and just pop start it, it fires right up. It's just the cranking cycle is not happy. Because it's weird because like the car drives perfectly fine, like makes boost good. It doesn't have any weird like rev limiters or anything. It revs clean. It's just startup that it has this issue. So, and it's not like cranking fuel or anything like that. It throws this code, the trigger code, and that's why I am convinced that that's what it is. But thanks for watching the video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Have a great night and a better tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the little video here with the S2000 talking about some of the issues that I've had with it and the couple street pulls that we got to do. It was really fun. This car, like I said, it makes like the perfect amount of horsepower to just, you know, surprise people, look good, and just, it's just such a well dialed in car. S2000s just drive super good. So anyways, guys, God bless. Have a great night and a better tomorrow, and we will see you later. Leave me a comment, leave me a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff.